Let's do this.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to be going over a little bit of the political culture. But first, we're actually going to be able to introduce one of our guest hosts. Not both of them could make it, so we're just going to introduce John today. Get to know a little bit about him, where he's coming from, and then we'll get to know more throughout the conversation. So, John, you got anything?
Hi, guys. I'm John. I grew up in a cult. I'm not making it up. If you guys have ever heard of the Worldwide Church of God, they're a complete cult. I just said that on air.
I love you.
Hopefully Matt doesn't get demonetized or deplatformed for that one.
Hey,
Because
ain't nobody paying me for anything yet. We're underground at this point. We can say whatever we want. we can let out all the dirt on them, but that's going to take us way more than the hour that we've got right here.
yeah, well, it is what it is.
Well, let's bring out the documentation for the next one.
Oh, dude, I got plenty. I have a whole hard drive full of docs on. Let's just say the leader had a thing for his daughter, and we're going to leave it at that.
Yeah. So I mentioned last time that some of the series ideas that we had for doing mini series for the show. Obviously, we want to do the Pope one. I don't know if we're still going to do it, but we talked about it. I liked it. I want to play around with that one. But that was one of the series that we talked about as well, is doing a little expose on them because he has firsthand knowledge. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Needless to say. But yeah, man, thanks for having me. I'm happy to finally be here. Because every time we go to record this thing, and Matt's like, "Hey, man, can you record this?" I'm like, "I'm arms deep in a project for home right now. If my wife's gonna yell or some other kind of excuse." So I'm finally here, so it's kind of nice.
Finding time for things has become pretty difficult in this day and age.
It really hasn't. It's surprising because we're all on lockdown. We're supposed to have all the free time in the world, but instead I've got like a list a mile long that just keeps getting longer because the honeydew list, the person that makes it now has more time to think up things for the honeydew list.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a part of the country where everything, like we're in a quarantine for a pandemic and everything's shut down, but you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
You can do anything.
It's as long as you put on a face covering of some kind.
Yeah,
and
which you should.
Absolutely, you should. You can go anywhere you need to go. I mean, heck, I think Lowe's is experiencing record profits right now from all the dads stuck home.
Oh yeah,
right.
Totally guilty. Just doing honeydew projects.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, it's not
killing too.
Hmm?
Hobby Lobby.
Oh yeah, Hobby Lobby's making a big killing.
Yeah. It's not entirely, on you or on Brennan. It's the fact that I have a very small window to be able to work on this, and that's not convenient because there's no wiggle room. It's like, oh, can you do it on this day? Nah, I'm in fucking Arizona that day.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm here. I got a lot of opinions, and happy to share them. I'm not sure everybody's gonna like them.
That's fine. They don't have to. Here's the thing: when John shares an opinion and you don't like it, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or email us at mattchat@downrightdialectical.com and tell us why. Because we want that kind of interaction and we want that feedback. And he may actually be willing to read them and respond. That's up to him. But if not, I'll be more than willing to tell you what I think about your opinions. And I'll tell you too. Like I'll tell you, John, what I think of your opinions. That's going to be fun.
I expect an anatomically correct diagram of how it hurts you in the ear hole.
It might not be the ear hole that I draw out for you.
You got to take time to draw it. Otherwise, complaint not accepted.
Yeah, there you go. Well, tell us a little bit about where you come from other than the cult. What'd you do after you escaped? And we'll save an episode for the harrowing tale of that as well.
I'll kind of follow some of my colleagues here in previous episodes and kind of give you a small biography, but I'm not going to go as far.
Did not see that bus coming.
Yeah.
It's Troy, everybody.
So, anyways, I grew up in a small town in East Texas, very close-minded, very racist. It was really fun times, especially seeing as how I was neither of those things.
Right. I can relate.
After I escaped said cult, which by escape, I mean I went to basically during high school and went to the cult leaders and told them to, take a flying leap. And after that, and a lot of pressuring and being pulled in with ministers trying to counsel me back in, and high-pressure sales, and a threatened exorcism at one point, which was really, really awesome.
Exorcism?
Yeah.
That's
Okay. Hey, at 15, exorcism seems scary because you don't really know that much about the world, even though you think you do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, went to college for a little bit, decided, well, college is expensive, and the Army guy came around.
To the hero save.
Yeah, well, it actually sounded more along the lines of, got him. And
Yeah.
proudly served. I mean, I have totally honorably served, not one of these dirt bags that we had that just got in there and were like a 90-day wonder and, oh man, the Army sucks, I hate this, let me out. And then they got a bad discharge and got all the benefits taken away. It's a bad deal. We'll go down that rabbit hole later.
Yeah.
But went on from there, got 2 degrees, working on a third. Currently working in IT, do a lot of technology, a lot of nerd stuff, a lot of practical stuff too. Do a lot of mechanics, welding, carpentry. I'm pretty skilled with electronics. I used to design stuff as a double E. I mean, I just like knowledge for knowledge's sake. And
Hence why I described him as a frustratingly, or a smarter person that's frustratingly good at just about everything. I forget exactly how I don't know if you listened to that one or not, but that's the generic paraphrase that I gave for you. Was just this smart guy that's frustratingly good at a lot of stuff.
yeah, I tend to piss off my wife's friends quite a bit.
It doesn't anger me. It's more of an admirable trait. And you are slightly taller, so I can say that I look up to you without being too cheesy about it.
I try to practice a philosophy, and one of them I've talked about in a few other forums is tactically offensive. So you can be offensive, but you got to know your audience and know when to be offensive.
Always situational awareness.
Anyway, moving on from there. These days, I'm still in IT, and I still freaking love technology. It's given us pretty much all the modern conveniences we have, and has enabled us to do things that we couldn't otherwise do. And before the show, we were having a pretty good discussion over the mental health issue that I think America has these days with technology and cell phones and being essentially connected but disconnected, and the fact that person-to-person connections are a bad deal. And I'm a real big proponent of person-to-person connections.
Yeah, access to too much information without being taught how to process it.
Yeah. And lastly, I run a small veteran nonprofit called United Warrior Services. We take, shameless plug, guys.
Go for it. I'm all for it, man.
We take vets out on outdoor adventure and get them out of the house. It's a low pressure counseling environment. All expenses paid for whoever wants to go. But we do everything from kayaking, rock climbing, fishing, hunting. Hunting's very limited. I got to put that in there because we have to evaluate each person case by case before you hand you a firearm. But we do. Sometimes we'll do just a day hike or something like that, or maybe a ruck, depending on time of year and what's going on. And this year has been real bad for us, honestly, with the Rona and everybody locked down. But that's me. That's what I do.
That sounds really
I've
awesome.
never heard of a vet babysitting service. That's send your vet on down. We'll keep them busy for a couple hours.
Actually, their wives love it, man.
So you say it's a nonprofit. Can other people that aren't vets contribute? Can they join?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this something?
We take volunteers, and we take donations, and we take any help we can get. If you want to come out and help us flip a burger, we'll take it, because we don't
Very
make any money out of this. And the founders, we generally, if we don't have any grant money or any kind of funds coming in, we'll reach in our pocket and pull out for it, whatever we can do. But you can find us at UnitedWarriorServices.org, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Donor Box. Also on East Texas Giving Day now. So,
Nice.
Yeah. Hit the big leagues.
I guess
there
that
next to
is
Berkshire's.
one thing to put in there is that if you do want to volunteer and help out, make sure that you're showing up with the right mentality.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be a fun camping trip. Like it has a specific purpose. So if you're going to show up to help, make sure you're there to help.
Yeah, with a caveat to that. We do hold a winter retreat when there's no pandemic, and that's open to whoever would like to come, and that is a fun camping trip. That's just for vets to get out and get away. Once again, all expenses paid.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that people aren't like, oh, this sounds like fun. we're going to go in the trees and see the bears.
Well, as Drill Sergeant Montali said many, many moons ago, you folks don't learn today.
All right.
Brush up on your sense of humor. You're going to need it.
What sense of humor? How do you know what my sense of humor is?
Because I turned on the light and finally found the shadow.
Walked
That was not about you, Troy. I saw that look.
I'm just taking note. I like that.
Okay.
Anyway, Matt, honestly, when I was listening to some of the episodes before I came on, I was expecting something completely different. Completely.
What do you mean?
So
I love how he waits until like we're recording the episode for him to like. he had a week to give me feedback to do better. And he's like, nah, this is Claire all over again. I'm going to wait until I'm on a hot mic to tell you what I think about you.
You know me.
Are you just surprised that I'm wearing pants or?
No, I'm very grateful you're wearing pants
Thank you.
because, you know, we had that conversation about blue cheese earlier. And I don't
Oh, damn. This is a repeat of Claire's episode.
Oh, that was good.
Anyways.
At least he didn't say cottage cheese. I appreciate that.
Well, no. So what I was expecting was something. I don't know if you guys know who Alex Jones is, but I was expecting,
Oh, yeah.
I was expecting to get on my podcast app and hear, well, hello guys, I'm going to tell you today about how the frogs have changed the sex down in Australia, and I can prove it. I got all the documents right here. And I did not.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to bring something up, I'm going to bring supporting evidence. So,
Right, so
we're not going to be talking about some bullshit that I can't back up.
You had
Hopefully.
It honestly sounded a lot to me like a very laid back version of Joe Rogan.
A little
Which
bit,
is,
yeah.
you know, a lot of kudos for that
cool.
one because you're
Thank you.
keeping it low key. I mean,
like that.
you
got
could
it.
talk about Australia
Right?
if you wanted, but here we go.
I could, and I will, hopefully next week when we bring on Soccer because, you know, he lives in Melbourne. So,
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Ask him to bring like something deadly that's his pet.
well, he's not flying here. What kind of budget you think we got? This is going to be done over Skype or Facebook Messenger or something.
It's like episode
I don't care.
2000
I
or
just
something.
want to see the crocodile hunter get after it.
Bring some videos.
I'm sorry ahead of time, buddy.
Well, yeah, and the first 3 episodes that came out they were pretty much just casual us chit chatting and everything like that. We didn't really focus in on too much. The third one we had the potential to, but Troy and I got a little tipsy, and so it was a little off the walls, but I still enjoyed it. The whole point of this podcast is I want people to understand how conversations should work. And most people are like, oh, I know how to have a conversation. I do it every day. That's fine. My point on that is you're going to meet people that you disagree with. You're going to run into these kinds of issues and everything. And to be able to have a casual fun, like be able to take the shit, like take light of yourself, you know, not to get too serious about these topics. And although they're incredibly personal, and people get really angry, they get really emotional, they get really upset about these things. You should be able to sit down and have a casual conversation with people that you disagree with. Because even though for the most part, I think the 4 of us are going to agree on a lot of things, there's still things that we disagree on.
Well, I'm not afraid to play devil's advocate if necessary, just to
Wow. Yeah. And that's
put a
good.
voice to things. Yeah.
That's good. I don't mind doing it either. But, you know, but that's another thing that people can't do. They can't get out of their own perspective and put on somebody else's hat and be like, okay, well, now I'm going to view it this way and challenge you on it. When you should be able to do that to yourself for one, but to be able to like do that in a, I don't want to necessarily say polite, but you should be polite about it, but to do it in a casual fashion with other people.
So the problem I think you're running into, and here's your segue into politics,
Uh-oh, here we go.
is that we have a prevailing us versus them mentality in this country.
100%.
And you can't disagree civilly anymore. It's impossible. In a lot of instances. Now, I'm not saying like too
I would
smart-
say that it's more prevalent that we don't, but I wouldn't say that we can't.
Okay, we don't.
Yeah,
I'll agree with
I'm not going to erase the possibility.
Hey, look,
of
we
it.
just had an agreement. It was completely civil.
See, and
This is
nobody
how this
punched
is-
anybody.
Yeah, this is how this is supposed to work.
I'm not getting into that fight. I'll walk. I'll say what he wants.
It's not a good webisode if nobody gets punched.
Have you seen this corn-fed motherfucker? Like, I'm big, but damn.
Alex Jones, I hope you're listening because you need to include punching in your.
I think if he got punched more often, he'd be a different person, honestly.
I don't think so. I think
think he'd punch that
I think he'd go straight into the victim mentality and make it all their fault.
No, his brain is so baked from all the conspiracy theories. It's not even funny. But,
Yeah.
back to the disagreement thing. Honestly, what I would say with disagreeing civilly is that when you disagree in a civil manner, you're not raising your voice. You're not going into a conversation where you can't have a change my mind moment. Mm-hmm. It's a situation where you're going in there and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Cool. This is what I think about this. Now let's talk about why we have these positions.
Right.
Instead, we have in America, in a lot of our mainstream media and a lot of our printed media, we have a situation where, okay, I've got this stake right here in the ground, and I'm going to stand by this stake. Now you're going to stand by yours,
Right.
and we're just going to shout at each other across the distance. And everybody in the middle between those two stakes, which I feel like is most of us sitting around this table right now, is going, yo, when the boat leave? We were supposed to be on the boat America. It done set sail.
Yeah.
And I got a dinghy that's called marginalized.
Yeah.
And that's just a problem.
It kind of falls into I understand that it's a huge problem and it's going to be really difficult for us to overcome if we can. There's the possibility and the chance for us to be able to do it, but whether we can do it or not is a completely different question. And so it falls under it falls under the whole, it's a difficult
Taco
problem.
Bell for dinner.
Yeah, it falls under, it's a difficult problem, but that doesn't mean that we can't and shouldn't work towards the solution. And so, yeah, this is a tiny little podcast with pretty much people on it that nobody knows who we are. We have less than 40 downloads on the first 3 episodes.
I'll have you know I have 5 patents to my name. Thank you very much. I'm a big deal.
Yeah, go out and ask people on the street. Name people with patents. My point stands.
My grandma says I was important.
And that's kind of my thing is I would like for people to understand that even if you feel that you belong further on the left or the right, that standing in the middle is not a bad place to be. You know, when you go to vote, sure, vote based on your conscience, your sense of morality and everything like that. But as far as going through your day-to-day life, for one, most of us are standing in the middle anyway. The way that we interact with each other and everything like that. So long as politics doesn't specifically get brought up, you don't fucking know. You can't see Democrat and Republican. It's just not there.
Well, according to Joe Biden, you can.
Well, okay. So
I'm just
okay, so that's the nonsensical ramblings of a 77-year-old who's going to be found unfit for office and replaced.
Absolutely.
I understand that. Once again,
yeah,
it was on national TV.
I know. I'm just saying we're not going to use
all
that
of
bar.
America went, oh my god.
We all did that puppy thing.
I think what I was
For the record, I'm not saying Trump is any
I'll
better.
jump in.
Oh, you found it.
I found it.
All right.
We're going live.
Just dust it off.
I think too many people regurgitate the information of the last smartest person they talk to. They don't do their own fact checking of the information they were giving to get their own ideas and their own to formulate their own opinion on how they feel. They just listen to a bunch of other smart people.
Yeah.
And then they say, okay, well, this is how I feel. And they don't really have any. Look at all these poor ass Trump supporters. Like, if you're broke as shit, why are you supporting Trump, motherfucker? You broke. Like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
So
Well, there's a
everybody
political messaging
regurgitates.
thing there.
What's that?
There's a political messaging thing there, and that's why they support him, is just the messaging. But I feel like you're going to get into that.
But yeah, we'll go there. But that's what I'm saying. Too many people don't formulate their own opinion. And because of that, they're afraid of confrontation because they know if I come and I question you with something other than what you believe,
Right.
you don't
got
have
no
a leg
answer
to
for
stand
it.
on because
Yeah.
all you're telling me is what Uncle Charles told you.
Yeah.
Or what your dad told you. How, you know what I mean? Or how you feel on something you listened to on the way to work yesterday.
Yeah, I
that
think it
you
was
happen to-
the introduction episode where I talked about how I used to be bad at conversations or debates like this because it would be like I had my talking points, they had their talking points, and we weren't really having a conversation. We weren't talking with each other. We were talking at each other.
Absolutely.
That goes back to my 2 steak thing.
yeah,
Steak is your talking
exactly.
points. You're just standing there next to him.
Yeah, and a lot of that was born out of the fact that I was just an angry atheist who got released on the world, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking tell everybody. But then I started the whole process of getting better and figuring out how to have these kinds of conversations, where obviously you're going to offend people. That's inevitable. You're going to upset people. That's also
Fuck people's
borderline
feelings,
inevitable.
man. Fuck people's feelings.
But there's still a way that you can have the conversation where you can be empathetic towards their point of view and try and bring them in closer to you. Because when you're having those kinds of debates and everything, ultimately, whether you're willing to admit it or not, your goal is to change their mind and convince them to see things from your point of view. You want to break down the ideals that they're holding, and you want to build them back up from your perspective. But you cannot do that if you don't know why someone is convinced of something.
Once again, that goes back to talking points and standing
Yeah.
aside your particular view set.
Yeah,
So
you have to be able to question your own perspective so that way you
Exactly.
can have justifications for
If
it.
you don't question everything, you're going to be lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys watch Steven Crowder occasionally. I'm going to bring him into this.
I do.
He's kind of a nut
little
in a
bit.
lot of ways.
He's funny, though.
And he's funny.
Yeah,
And
he's
that's-
out there, but at least he makes it entertaining.
I really enjoy his Change My Mind series.
Yes.
And, that's not necessarily because, Crowder has publicly said, hey, I have a particular political preference.
Yeah.
There is no question. But, his Change My Mind segments, they actually have a meaningful debate most of the time. Sometimes he gets some guys that are just completely hostile, but usually he'll set somebody down at a table and he will try and reason their talking points and have a two-way conversation based on facts.
Right.
And usually he ends up kind of ahead in some of these because he has all the facts on hand And in my opinion, that's a little bit of an unfair platform. But the
Yes.
point is that he's out there trying to say, okay, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. Now, does he have the odds tilted to him? A little bit, maybe. But at least he's making an attempt.
I think the best impression that series gives is because there are times where I'll listen to him and I'm like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it goes back to, the atheism versus theism thing. I'm never out to deconvert anybody. The goal that I'm satisfied with at the end of the conversation is, hey, you met an atheist that wasn't a monster. And so the best thing that I get from that series is that he's meeting people that absolutely disagree with him, but he stays as polite and courteous as he possibly can throughout the entire thing.
Sometimes it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to the theater debate? You remember the whole Robert's Rules of Orders and you used to go and listen to great debates?
Well, Robert's Rules of Orders is a parliamentary procedure, I think.
Well, I mean,
So
it's
a
part of
little bit
every
different
debate.
scenario. But yeah, you had a structure to the debate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you come up with your points, you have your counterpoints, and people used to go and listen to debates.
Yeah. I think a lot of
What happened to that?
debate in and of itself fell away when people stopped being as interested in education, because everything can just be pretty much handed to you for your life at this point, as far as the information that you get. So if you don't actively go out and search for something, it's never going to be there for you.
It's crazy because we live in the age of information.
Well,
We do, and yet we're the most uninformed, in my opinion.
so where'd you grow up? You grew up in Texas, right?
Greenville, yeah. Greenville,
Greenville,
Texas.
okay. So, yeah, I knew that from listening to the other episode. So in school,
Mm-hmm.
we had the interscholastic league right here in Texas, where you would go and you'd have debate teams that went and you debated,
Absolutely.
at different schools. I found out they don't do that no more.
They killed the debate squad?
It's a whole different beast now. It's just named something different. It's not debate squad, and there's different.
That was the first place I learned critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
scary.
Yeah, they're
Now
not
that
doing it.
they might
They're
not
taking
have,
that away from kids.
they haven't killed it off in all districts, but in some in Texas, it's gone. Just like cursive handwriting is gone now.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
But I mean, that's one of the reasons why.
You need to know how to sign your name.
Yeah.
Like a doctor and shit.
Because there's magic between straight lines in letters and curly lines in letters. One is legally binding and one is not.
I think
Actually, as long as you have somebody witnessing you draw an X, that is legally binding.
Let's get technical with the jokes now.
Haven't you ever seen the movie where they're walking up and going, "Make your mark," and the dude makes an X on a piece of paper? That's where that theory came from. Is essentially the British military would recruit poor farmers and people that didn't have any education and might be Trump supporters.
Sounds a lot like America.
And they'd make an X on a piece of paper, and as long as somebody was there to witness they did it, that could write, binding.
Nice. Terrifying.
Seriously.
Terrifying, but nice.
Well, that got him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, even though and I don't get frustrated by the fact that the podcast is still small. We've literally just started it, but it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was to have the conversations to let people know that this information's out there. You can find it. And so if you happen to get, introduced this through a casual means, someone like just refers it to, or you randomly find us on the internet, at least I put my pants on. But now they
That's
have
what
access
you
to
called
someone.
this episode.
Now I have my pants on. That's what I'm going to do it now. But I think that it's just one more place for people to, to be encouraged to actually go and look for information, look for knowledge. And the one thing that, I'm a really big supporter of is if I tell you something and you're like, oh, sounds like a really good idea, or, oh, that's smart. Don't fucking believe me at face value. You go research it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't just take it for what I've said it to be.
Do not take any of the facts or historical points that I make as factual either. Go off and pick up a history book. History's like a freaking story.
Yeah.
Where it instead of fiction, this actually happened. There's some weird stuff in history that's
scary.
fascinating. It's scary. And kind of bringing that back to the political climate conversation, I feel like we that forget the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them.
Yes.
Right? We got people tearing down history right now.
You talking about those racist statues?
No. I'm not talking about the racist statues. I'm talking about them yanking down statues of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and shit like that.
I mean, we're not going to forget who the fuck they are because there's not a statue of them.
Oh, I know. But
I mean, Washington does have a giant stone dick in D.C.
that is true. They do.
Yeah.
It's also on all the dollar bills. In
But they defaced.
That's true.
They defaced the freaking World War monuments, and then they even went after MLK.
Let them go.
I mean,
At what point are we like putting these guys as deities?
Well, I'm not talking about deities. I'm just mean like,
they had their issues, but they were important for a reason for us to remember.
Were they?
Yes.
I think that's the problem with mankind is we put too much importance
You might be right.
in what somebody did in that time and place.
Well, and that's why I
what
didn't.
they were dealing with.
That's why I didn't say they were important enough for us to revere, but they were important enough for us to remember.
Absolutely, they need to go along the timeline. Blink.
Yeah.
You were important little spot on the timeline. Let's give you your shout out. But all these statues and shit, no.
Yeah, but what about revisionist history that we have going on now too, as kind of a symptom of I hate to use the word ignorance, but the miseducation of the populace right now, because we have a serious education problem in this country. I think we all agree that that's the thing.
Fucked.
Yeah. But
it's more regurgitative than it is teaching kids to learn and to teach themselves.
Exactly. And instead of encouraging you to go off and research, like having research papers, I'm sure we all remember hating those and everything. But it served a purpose.
Yeah, kids these days are given information, not taught how to learn.
Yeah, and now if you go crack open a textbook in some of the history classrooms, they've completely downplayed the Civil War, the events that happened there, and some of the lessons that should have come out. Oh yeah, and it's kind of like half a chapter. Not even making it up.
It's gonna brush right over this. Keep moving.
Yeah, Texas history, kind of some of the similar things are starting to happen.
I think more so we need more world history than we get Texas history.
Oh, I 100%.
Yes.
It's kind of weird how Texas is like, make sure you do Texas history now.
No, I agree with you on that one, with one exception. I think we should have our cake and eat it too. So let's say we have a module on Texas history, then we have several modules on world history. Because world history is important, and America is part of the world. Instead of here in America, and most of our history, which also contributes to our political climate, is that we have American history. And if you want to have world history, European history, something like that, you got to go take an AP course, or something outside the normal curriculum in order to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And I think that really hamstrings a lot of our young students, because there's a lot of lessons from history that are massively important. Roman times, Viking times. You've got the amazing people that are the Greeks that just wow. You have Egyptian history. You have the history of China alone would take you a solid 3 semesters to get through. I guarantee it, and you'd still be confused.
Yeah.
But you have Japanese history, you have Korean history. And if you understand these kinds of different modules of history, you understand that why that portion of the world has the culture it has and why it's the way it is. And you can go off and you can interact with that culture instead of going in there and saying, oh, these are my American values, screw you.
Right. It decentralizes our focus on just being American.
Can I interject and say?
I'm sorry. Soapbox down.
No. We have to acknowledge the fact that a large part of our education system was geared and designed towards nationalism and white supremacy.
And factory working.
And in that, a lot of our textbooks were geared towards white supremacy. And
how is it geared towards white supremacy?
No, he has a point to it.
I know, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna make him draw it out a little bit.
Okay.
Well, because here's the thing. We can, like, when we're on the podcast and everything, and we say something that is that loaded. Okay. There's gonna be someone that hears it that's gonna disagree, and if they don't hear your justifications, they only have theirs, so they're just gonna automatically assume they're right.
Okay.
So if we can explain to them where you're coming from, then it gives them an idea of why you're, convinced that it comes from white supremacy.
Okay. Well, I will go into the maps that we were giving in school, and how the size of America was demonstrated by however many white Christians were like. I need to go back here. Let me pull it up here.
That's fine.
Are you referring to the original 13 colony maps and the way that they were doing census based on religion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And those were still used in textbooks early on, all the way up until about 1987.
Once again, people research.
Yes.
Absolutely. Check it out. Don't take my word for it. I feel like LeVar Burton right here. Don't take my word for it.
LeVar Burton is a great
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. There are some times where one of us says something that I'm going to do my best to kind of latch onto that, so that way we can dive a little deeper. It's not even fact checking. It's just presenting the argument in a way that people can actually hear it to its full extent. Because, like I said, if they just hear that soundbite of our education was founded on white supremacy, there's definitely going to be people that disagree with that. And if we don't give them something else to think about, then they just stick with their own presuppositions, and they'll automatically justify themselves to be right. They'll say that you're wrong and move on. Right. If we give them something to challenge it with, then we at least have an opportunity to present them with something to go learn.
Okay, cool. I'll take that ball and run with it real fast while he gets done with his fact check.
Yeah, I'm pulling up.
That's fine.
So after the American education system got rolling, let's be real. Whites were the primary culture in the nation, white in Judeo-Christianism, which influenced a lot of everything that we do in this country. We have the Supreme Court doors where we have the Ten Commandments carved into them. Mm-hmm. We have multiple religious monuments, icons, churches out the wazoo. There's no way that culture doesn't have an influence on your education system.
Right.
So if you go back and look at textbooks from, let's say, the 1910s, 1920s, and starting to go into 1930s, it's very, very Judeo-Christian white dude kind of education. And it's also very class-based education. So when I say class-based, we had an education system that had private institutions and schools for our more wealthy citizens. We still do.
Yeah, based on the taxpayer system.
Well, we're going to get into that in a minute. But we had that going on, and then we also had a situation where the lower class citizens, they were dependent on public funding, a lot of them, for their education. You know, the one room schoolhouse kind of idea. So the community itself was responsible for the education, which the community was predominantly white. There you go. So white and Christian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got to throw that one in there.
Maybe like two Jewish guys. Or gals, whatever your flavor is.
And then the Mormons came. No,
no, the Mormons were already here by that time, but they're over in Utah kind of doing their own thing. That's a whole different ball of wax. But anyways, so over time, the education system started to change, especially during the civil rights movement and a lot of the civil liberties stuff that happened.
When we went through integration.
When we started going through integration. So it actually started right around the time that African Americans were allowed to vote as a full vote in most southern states. And then it kept progressing into the 90s. And, well, I'll say early 80s into the 90s. We had this massive integration push. So everybody was very equal. Everybody was friends. Nobody hated anybody. That was all very pushed in school. And you had an education system that was then educating everyone on the whole picture of the globe. And if for you guys at home, we have a small globe in here, and I'm going to spin it real fast. We had a whole education system that was not entirely based on one ideal. It was based on inclusivity. So you were taught to be inclusive not only of Judeo-Christians, you were taught to be inclusive of Jews and Hindi and any other type of religious sect you might have, and then the cultures and the races that went along with that. So we started having more and more of a melting pot effect. In fact, I remember very vividly sitting in history class in the 90s and my teacher emphasizing the fact that America is a melting pot, that we're all coming together.
Right? Yeah.
I remember that catchphrase.
So at that time, we thought racism was going to go downhill. It was going to go away.
Did you?
No. That was
as a kid. There are innocents, absolutely.
Well, see, because here's the thing. Because I remember what you were I remember what you're talking about when everything. We're in class. They were like, "Yeah, we should celebrate the fact that we're a melting pot. We're a nation of of individual cultures and everything coming together to share this land and to prosper together, live the American dream." The problem was that was only ever upheld in the classroom. As soon as you got into the hallway, it was this and that and
Well, no, okay. So when I said we thought racism was going to go away, I'm saying that was the intended thought to be communicated.
Okay,
I should clarify myself.
Yeah, they were hoping it would go away, but the fact that they put no effort into actually teaching the generation coming up that it's wrong to call the one black kid in school that.
Right. So in my school, like I said, I grew up somewhere that's very, very culturally polarized. That's what I call racism, cultural polarization.
That's exactly what it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
If I could think of a better term, that would be exactly what it is.
There's a few other factors that go into it, but
it's lack of experience with someone other than yourself.
So in school, I'm sure y'all remember this. We'd go into the lunchroom, and everybody of a certain skin tone is on one side, and everybody of another skin tone is on the other, and they didn't really cross that much. So some did, most didn't. And it wasn't necessarily because they were discouraged from doing so, or it was asked that everybody stay separated, like in the hallways or even in the gym.
I think kids naturally fall into some forms of tribalism when they're put in social settings like that.
That's exactly what it was.
I don't think that's true. I think that's taught. I think we tried to do that same thing with our communities and saying, okay, well, black people usually want to live amongst black people and white people want to live around white people. And then when the studies that were done, I'll go pull that up. Don't take my word for it, but there were studies done on this. And the kids, by and large, have to be taught racism. Well,
I'm not talking about racism in and of itself. I'm talking more the tribalism of you look like me, you make me feel more comfortable.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm
socially.
saying, as far as socially, kids don't see any of that stuff. They just want to go and play with each other until they're taught. Well, this friend comes over to my house more often than that one, so now we have more in common.
Right.
So I'm going to hang out with him, and then he's got a friend because my parents allow this friend to come over more than that friend. We live beside these people, and my dad don't like his. So kids are taught that, and you see that more. It becomes to prevail itself more so in middle school. Once you start identifying your own personal identity, then it separates into high school.
Yep.
But when you look at the elementary age group of kids, they have no concept of that unless it's told to them.
Right.
And then you see the weird comments they make, and kids are like, what the hell is this kid talking about? Well, what do you think they talking about? They got that at home.
Yeah. And I think what I meant was more the
elementary
clique
area.
persona that you find in school, where kids tend to migrate to the people like them because they feel more comfortable. They feel that they're allowed to be more open. They're allowed to be, they feel safer. Because, I mean, you get cliques in school, and obviously you get integrated cliques. They're not all going to be of the same color and everything. But I think that's what I meant by the whole tribalism thing is whenever you get kids in a social setting like that, they're going to form their own little tribes because it makes them feel safe.
Well, that does feed into the separation. It does. But I 100% think that any kind of racial preference is a learned response.
Yes, that I'll agree with 100%. Because when I said the one black kid in school, if I remember correctly, living in that tiny ass motherfucking town that I grew up in, there was one. I'm not going to give too many details because obviously we're still really close to that town, and I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. But that was it, one. Yeah. And then we had a very, very, very small Hispanic group in the school, but we were like 99% white. It was cracker all the way.
Yeah. That was not by chance.
Did you grow up in South Park?
Oh shit! I did not see that. He had a serious look on his face and everything. I fell for that. No. I grew up in Merritt, Texas.
Well,
blink and it's gone.
Hey, the maps I was talking about is called the GERADUS. You guys want to take a Gerardus Mercator in 1569? It was a Flemish cartographer that it's a Mercator projection maps is the name of the maps that we were using in school, and they've since changed. But these are 400-year-old maps that were created when Europe was seeking to establish dominance, and its intention was navigational of drawn along colonial trade routes. And as a result, European countries were depicted significantly larger than they physically are. And so when you look at a map, what does that tell you? If America is looking the same size as South America, when South America is 3 times the size of North America,
right?
Africa is looking like a little bitty continent. It looks like it's in comparison to North America. Africa is one of the largest.
Yeah,
I have.
You know, so you start to see American pride and that nationalism, and no, we're American. That's coming from false depictions.
Yeah.
That we're taught, and it slowly develops and slowly.
And that's why I'm saying that it's a bad thing that we need to get away from. If we could get people to stop, because it's one thing to be like, I love my country, I like being here. But if you have a central view where you only know what's going on within our borders and you have because here's the thing, like I get it, we're a major influence on the world. We're not the only influence on the world, and we can be influenced by the world.
We're a self-developed major influence on the world. We chose to do that over time through many incremental changes.
Yes, but that doesn't change the fact that, and that's another problem, is we kind of have that mentality of, oh, well, we should do. Did I miss something?
I said mostly killing the Indians. That's the start.
We did that here. We didn't do that over there. We did that here.
Well, I mean, we had them take over a whole country, right? That's how we started.
Hey, man,
yeah.
I got this Indian card in my wallet that says, I ain't dead.
Can we take a side little leap and talk about how many white people claim Indian?
Oh, shit.
Like,
oh, shit.
Weird. Have you noticed that?
No, it really is. It really is. And there's a lot of white dudes like, I'm pale. I mean,
hold on.
If y'all could see me, I am pale.
This is an interesting. Go ahead while I find this real quick.
My family has a roll number. Like we have a legit, recorded by the Dawes Act, lineage of Indian heritage. But then, like, you go up to Oklahoma, everybody has Indian heritage. And I'm sitting there going, bro, you're paler than me, and I'm part Irish. I got some Norwegian in there too. So you're really messed up.
What the fuck, man?
It's true. I
creepy
think
and scary.
they track it down to 164th, I believe. I think they even go further than that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they give you a certain percentage based on your ancestry. They give me an 1/8, and personally, I don't see it, but you know,
It's scary. We're gonna come and terrorize you, and then we're gonna reward everybody that's got a piece of your lineage in you that is not really remotely connected.
it's
They
actually-
didn't want
dude,
to do that at first.
if you want to take a little side jog into this, it's actually messed up. Like my family tree we had to go back through the Dawes Act to figure out that we actually had this going on, because back in the day, one of my ancestors' name was Bullard, and he had a Native American wife, full blood. He wasn't the only one, but at the time, it was a big social stigma to be married to an Indian woman. Oh yeah, Native American woman as your wife, bro, you were a second-class citizen.
Wow.
And so he registered her as white in order to avoid some of the stigma. And she was, by all accounts, just pale enough to go ahead and pass. It just, you know, she has a tan kind of thing. And then it took us years of research to figure out what was going on there, because, you know, my extended family are all like, yeah, we're part Indian, but we never got in the Dawes Act or anything. So my mom went off and she did all this research, went through all the paper rolls, did a Freedom of Information Act request at one point. She was serious.
Wow.
And she got all the information, but that's why, is because at the time it was culturally unacceptable for you to be married to an Indian girl. It's weird.
Which is one thing to take into consideration. The other side of the coin, which is a little bit darker and people don't want to think about, is you got all these white people running around. Oh, and they find out, oh, like I've got Native American blood in me. How much of that came from rape?
Ouch.
Do you really want me to historically answer that?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, in terms of genetic manipulation due to invading armies, the Mongols are probably up there in the top 10 of being
Genghis
able to
Khan.
alter an entire populace with their genetic material.
Genghis Khan did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, the point still stands. It's one thing that, and the reason why I say it that way is because I do want it to kind of shock people a little bit. I do want to make them be like, what the fuck? And it's just because it's like, okay, you found out like you're 1% of something. Maybe you should go look through your family history to find out how it got there.
Let me ask you this.
Because the Native American thing bugs me. There's way too many white people that go to powwows and they're like, oh, I'm going to put on a costume and I'm going to do this. And I'm like, it's not a motherfucking costume. No. This isn't a party that you're just coming to
There's
participate
some
in.
serious symbology.
Yeah,
there.
this is a ceremony that you're being given permission to witness. This isn't something that you're supposed to come and treat it like a trick or treat, like, you know, fall festival type thing. And so it kind of irks me just a little bit.
There's a lot of that heritage you're not really supposed to talk about either.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a little too prickish about it, but yeah, it bugs me when I hear white people like, I'm an Indian. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Well, back to your question. Why do you think there's so many blonde French people?
Hold on. Sorry, I had an answer in my head and it wasn't going to be a good one, and it made me laugh.
Okay, well, I'm just pointing that out, that every time you have an invading army,
yes,
directly after that you have a baby boom.
Well, and that's kind of my point.
Throughout history, we have become, everybody tries to identify as a certain culture or country of origin. We're all mutts.
Yes,
used to it.
Well, I'm the first one to tell people. I'd be like, look, people ask me, what are you? I'm a white dude. That's the easiest answer. Then they're like, well, where do you come from? As far as I can tell,
what you are is Western European.
Well, as far as I can tell, we started in Germany. We made our way over to Scotland. Somehow we winded up here in the States, but we traveled the world and fucked everybody on our way.
Rape is actually a form of warfare in Africa right now.
Actually, it is. You're not wrong.
Well, it's been a form of warfare for everywhere, but in Africa, it's especially prevalent with the warlords.
Well, it's not just the warlords. Specific tribes and tribal regions will invade other places, and
they've actually
going and raping the women and having children by them.
Yeah, they've got that utensil that they designed over there. That's basically the tube with the teeth in it that they can insert and leave there, so that way if they're ever attacked, that motherfucker's got to go to a hospital to get that thing taken off. Which I love that, and I want it here in the States.
There's a famous photographer named Platon. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He shot a lot of famous figures. Bill Clinton, the Obama poster you guys are familiar with, was shot by Platon. He went over and he took pictures of a doctor over in Africa who was trying to take care of those women and tell the story of all these women who were raped and were having kids because it was a form of warfare.
Yeah.
and the doctor was trying to make sure they were healthy and taken care of in the process, and having natural abortions. Well, not natural abortions, but safe abortions.
Yeah, or as safe as
given the
possible.
conditions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So
Yeah.
absolutely, I'm just.
I think the reason why I kind of took that on a little bit of more of a sour note is when you find out that you have something in your history somewhere, in your family lineage somewhere, the automatic immediate response, it seems to be from people, is, oh, I should learn more about this and celebrate it. Well, actually, I'm going to cut out that first half. It's, oh, I'm going to find a way to try and celebrate this. Like the person that finds out that they're like 0.05% Irish, suddenly, St. Patrick's Day means so much more to them. And really, they're just going to, it's not his fault. It happens to 4 out of 5 guys.
Yeah.
But my thing is, like, I get annoyed when, and it's not just a white people thing. It's just a people thing. If you go and you find something new in your family history that you didn't know was there, before you automatically just, accept and want to celebrate it and everything like that, take the time to go and figure out why it's there. Because maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of a darker side to it. Are you comfortable? Okay.
Anyways, driving on back to the dark side.
Yeah.
The political climate, as we see it,
Right.
And speaking back to education, we went through the 90s where we're trying to be inclusive, got in the 2000s, and then we had a very divisive president, and 2 of them actually, because Obama came along and divided a lot of people because everybody was really mad about him, his policies, and probably his skin color too. I would
Yeah, let's
wager
not count that out.
Huh?
Yeah, I said let's not count that out.
Yeah, no, I would wager there is a portion of the populace that was upset about that. And then we had Trump come along, and Trump really pissed everybody off. Everybody.
Yeah, he managed to offend everybody. Not everybody, but he at least managed to offend more people on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
The problem
he
is,
managed to alienate everyone, and it's a direct result of the fact that during the 80s and 90s, we said, hey, everybody's included, everybody's great, this is awesome. And then as a populace did the exact opposite.
Right. And that's one of the things where I talk about how I don't like people who are so party dedicated, because if you were on the Republican side of the aisle and you didn't like Trump and you didn't support Trump, but you voted for Trump, you're part of the problem. And it's just like, and the reason why I bring that up is because people might think that I'm being unfair to the Democrats recently, because I feel that in this election, despite the fact that I wanted Trump out of office, I still think that the Democrats did a great disservice to this country, because so many of them were like, look, we get it. Joe Biden's a piece of shit. We don't want him as president either, but vote for him.
So let me make one thing clear. A lot of, nobody here actually knows what my political leanings are, except maybe Matt. I don't really subscribe to any politics, but I'll tell you this much. The 2 old party candidates, those were complete dumpster fires.
Yeah.
And if we want to fix the political situation in this country, we have to get away from the mentality that those are the only 2 options.
That was my point with all that.
We had a couple viable third-party candidates. One of them was a little bit more sane than another one. I'm not going to tell you who she is.
It's Kamala Harris, everybody. If that was a moment for me to get punched, that was it.
You're lucky you're way over there.
Right?
And before anybody thinks I'm racist, that ain't it. It's because of her policy.
Yes.
Scary.
She is a train wreck.
But no, we definitely had some viable other options. The problem is we have a duopoly in this country where if you don't vote along the 2 old major parties,
that you're wasting your vote.
You're wasting your vote, or nobody's going to get elected, and yada yada. And there's a growing kind of shift, what I would call a shift to the middle around that argument in the country, but we definitely ain't nowhere near there yet.
No, we're not. And on that argument,
And I'm not just talking about for president. I'm talking about at every level of office.
Right.
We should have more than 2 options, because we've been eating the same 2 dog bowls for a long time, and boy, it tastes bad.
And they're the same people for the most part. They're the same fucking people.
Term limits for Congress people.
Yes.
Yes.
As far as I can tell, whenever we swap from Democratic to Republican or Republican to Democratic, as far as the presidency goes, it's like, hey, we're going to have a shift. We're going to have a change. Things are going to get better. And then they shake hands behind everybody's back. They hand off the power with the full intent of, we'll give this back in 8 years.
Boardwalk Empire is an excellent example of how that goes down behind closed doors. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
HBO? No, I haven't, but I could take
Empire.
House of Cards as a reference and assume that it's close.
Okay. For facts, Joe Jorgensen got 3,573 votes. Howie Hawkins of the Green Party.
Wait,
I think you're thinking more like 3 million.
yeah, you're reading the way wrong stat. She got 4% of the total popular vote in the United States?
Yeah.
Joe.
This is not. This is from the Associated Press.
For Joe Jorgensen, for the overall vote, it had to have been more than 3,000.
It's more than $3,000.
She got $3,000 in Texas.
Yeah, she got that at least in Texas.
But
I was actually searching to find out how many Kanye West got.
I am curious.
Suddenly, a lot of things make sense.
Hey, in 2016, Harambe got 10,000 or more.
Yeah.
So
2016, D's Nuts led Harambe.
that's true. But one of the things that I've been trying to get people to realize when they do that whole argument, you're wasting your vote. Well, for one, at least I'm voting for somebody that I believe in, whereas you're intentionally telling me that you don't believe in this person, but you're going to vote for them anyway. To me, that's a wasted vote.
That's wasted.
You're voting for someone that you openly disagree with.
Let me get on my soapbox.
She had
hold on, just one second.
I'm just saying,
621,273 votes.
Okay,
Joe.
Not enough.
Not enough. A little bit under Gary Johnson from 2016.
Yeah, my
it's
thing
still,
is
it's still much more than historically it's been.
Yeah, my thing is the people on either side, they're like, oh, I'm a Democrat, oh, I'm a Republican. They want to tell you that voting third party is worthless. And what I try to point out to them is, regardless of what side you're on, there are plenty of people that I've discussed with and have openly talked on social media and the internet and everything like that they don't like their party candidate. Well, I don't like Trump, but I'm a Republican, so I feel like I got to vote for him. Or I don't like Biden, but I'm a Democrat, so I feel like I got to vote for him. If all of you motherfuckers would just walk away from those two parties, you don't think a third party could win. But if all of y'all would just walk away from those two parties and find a third party that you could vote for, guess who wouldn't win? Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
That's how Abraham Lincoln.
But they're so brainwashed into thinking they have to
Roosevelt
vote.
did the same thing. Bull Moose Party, baby.
Yeah. But they're so brainwashed.
It's been done before in history.
That's the thing. But people don't read history anymore. At least they don't pay attention to the good bits. They pay attention to all the bad bits.
Maybe you should do a drunk history podcast.
Maybe we should.
So what you're saying is it all leads back into historical ignorance.
It does. You know, people don't pay attention to the mistakes that we've made in the past. And so now we're like, Star Wars. Let's put it this way. They just made 3 shitty fucking movies. And one of the executive producers said, oh, well, we didn't have anything to go on.
There's an entire extended universe.
Exactly.
Lies.
So, and that's what it makes me think of today when they're like, oh, well, you know, you got to vote for Biden. You got to vote for Trump. We don't have anything else to go on. We've made these mistakes before. We have information to work on. You're just, at this point,
It's the media.
You're actively avoiding it.
The media only highlights those two.
Yeah, but at some point, we have to just say that it's up to the individual to learn things on their own.
Well,
and that's part of why, you know, I wanted to do this and everything, is to point out that obviously even this podcast could be part of the media, but at least we're honest to say, do not take what we're saying for fact.
Yeah.
Like we're just trying to get you to think. 30 seconds, we want to grab your attention to get you to think, and in that thought process, we want you to remember the words. Go look it up for yourself. Go study it yourself.
For y'all that are fact checking right now, the podcast is longer than 30 seconds.
But I can't necessarily expect to have someone's attention for the full hour.
You'd be surprised.
But the thing is like they could listen for the whole hour and everything, but then they could just in one ear and out the other. But if we could just inspire 30 seconds of thought just for them to be like, damn, maybe I should go look into this. Or damn, maybe I should go look into that. Or even you don't necessarily have to go do the research yourself. If you find something that you disagree with on the many things that we've said here, reach out to us. We could send you some research material and help you get started. If you're not sure where to start the process, well, depending on how you approach us. I did tell Charles at one point the best way to get my attention is to email mattchat@downrightdialectical.com in the subject line that's just, hey, fucktard. Because if you put, I don't care what you put in the email, if that's the subject line, I'm reading your email.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to something that you were just talking about with the media coverage, I feel like the mainstream media doesn't have as big of an influence on people of, say, our generation as it does on some of the previous generations. I tend to, and this is going to be like somebody's going to call this an okay boomer moment. It's not. It's just facts. I feel like that the baby boom generation watches the mainstream media, watches TV, watches news outlets, reads newspapers and stuff like that, and doesn't actually go off and research, fact check, or get on the internet and, you know, get on this giant database of all of human knowledge that we have developed for the specific purpose of being informed. It's called the information age for a reason.
Right.
They simply listen to the talking heads. And
to their credit, I got to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, absolutely.
To their credit, they come from a generation where journalism meant
something.
No, you're 100% right.
Something.
And I was going to lead right into
that's what they leaned on.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Walter Cronkite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trusted guy in journalism. Dan, well, hey, bro, you were in the Army. You know what Dan Rather did.
Let's go put that name out there.
Yeah. So let's go back to Cronkite. Cronkite got on TV, and Cronkite was like, "All right, everyone, this is the news tonight. Tonight, there were 4 bombs that went off in Sarajevo, causing a particulate ejection as high as 200 feet in the air." And people would straight up listen to that dude falling asleep, but they trusted the facts he was putting out, right?
So are you saying that the younger generation's doing it better? Because I'm afraid that most of their information is coming from Twitter and TikTok.
No, I'm saying that a lot of the younger generation are starting to actually do more research. It's kind of a reverse of what you would think. So Twitter and TikTok, I agree. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Did you say plenty of fish?
No. How'd that happen? No, I said garbage. But shout out to Plenty of Fish.
If you're getting your news from Plenty of Fish, you're doing the wrong thing.
Oh, Plenty of Fish, but it ain't the news.
It burns.
And that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize. We are now off the internet.
Oh shit.
So anyway, no, I actually have noticed that the younger generation has been going off, and they're doing a little bit more research. They're actually starting to investigate a little bit more and do some Google searches. And I think some of that is a little bit driven by those annoying things where it's like Facebook says, "Oh, well, this is fact checked, and this is only partly false," and this kind of stuff. And of course, Facebook is zucking a lot of people and just painting everything with a big broad brush. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you should just say what you're saying, drive on. It's your responsibility to figure out if it's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole culture, what I'm driving is that whole culture is actually driving a little bit of a change, because now the younger generation doesn't trust the news.
Right.
Some of them trust specific news sources, like you have the balkanized thing between CNN and Fox.
Right.
Even that's going away. It's like there's total distrust of all media outlets, and you just kind of go off into the internet and try and accumulate the facts from many different sources. That's actually a good thing.
It is. One of the things that, despite some of the movements and some of the ways that it's being handled and everything, that I disagree with, but still excites me, is the fact that we do seem to have a generation of activists coming up. Because honestly, if I think about it, within my generation, we didn't have any. We didn't have a single activist.
Yeah, we did. We had the guys that skateboarded in the place that you weren't supposed to skateboard. Those guys were heroes.
I'll tell you what happened. The civil rights movements happened. Martin Luther King got killed after the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
They had the pass and all that good stuff, and everybody just kind of settled down and was okay. And then everybody shot towards retirement and building a happy home, and that we're going to be okay. Like you were talking about in the 80s with everybody.
They put too much trust in the system.
Now after the civil rights movement, everybody got quiet, and we didn't really talk about those little demons.
Yeah.
And now the little demons start getting bigger and getting older and more uglier.
Yeah, just because we stopped talking about them doesn't mean they went away.
I would argue that instead we've had a light shown on all the little demons. I don't think the demons are as big as what we're trying to make them out to be. But what I think's happening is we're realizing how prevalent they are.
Explain. Go deeper.
Okay, so check this out. Donald Trump gets elected, right? Immediately, he's, mud's flying at him, vitriol. Everybody hates Donald Trump. And let's be fair to him, he brought it on himself.
Yeah, that was a given. He doesn't have the personality of hug me, I'm kind.
Right. So the racism argument started around the time that Trump was running. It was kind of a smear tactic during his campaign. I don't know if it's valid or not. I don't know the man. Make no judgments. He's an idiot on TV, but that's TV.
He was accused of being a slumlord in New York.
That is true. He was. I'm not disputing that. But what I'm driving at is not Trump necessarily. So if you look at the country, we started having a lot of press and media coverage put on something that could have been considered a racist event, right? Now, George Floyd, I know everybody brings him up.
No, let's go for it.
The guy should never have been killed, shouldn't have been in that situation. I don't think the officers, after reviewing all the footage, handled it appropriately.
That was a murder.
It was Yeah, you shouldn't put your knee in the back of anybody's neck. That is an approved MMA hold, but I don't think you need an MMA hold to hold down a handcuff guy. I mean,
you don't.
I will say this as an interjection. The George Floyd thing was sensationalized instead of putting the proper perspective. The proper perspective is this. No American that pays taxes in America, no American, regardless, white, purple, black, pink, whatever, should ever be in that position to where they're pleading for their life, that they're pleading for oxygen or anything.
Right.
And regardless of the fact of him being black.
Regardless of the fact that him being inebriated and having some chemicals in his system,
No
doesn't
matter
matter. The cops should be able to handle that. It comes down to training.
We have a court for a reason. You don't get tried on the street.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
You know, and your job is to make sure they make it to prison and they make it there safely. Well, not prison, but to jail. And they make it there safely, and then the rest of the due process happens.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to run by you at one point,
I was trying
that go ahead.
I was trying to get through with the spotlight. He
Yeah.
wanted me to go deep. I'm going deep.
Okay.
Go deep, brother.
Deep state.
Deep.
Hey guys, we're going down the deep state here. I'll quit doing Alex Jones sometime, but it's hilarious. So anyway, that event happened, and you're right. It was sensationalized by the media. The whole thing should never have occurred, but it was such a prevalent thing, and the world, but mainly Americans, African Americans, were so angry about that situation, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But then, since we've had all this buildup of racism talk, racism oppression, that the Republicans are now attempt to be associated with racism, now we have this big old spotlight, just sprayed over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're seeing racism in little corners where it's been able to fester for a long time, and we're starting to be able to root those out. The problem is we have a perception issue, my opinion. We have a perception problem.
Mm-hmm.
The perception is that racism is everywhere. It's not. It's not. Racism is in small areas, small corners of the country where people decide to be ignorant. Now, it can be in bigger parts of the country too. I'm not trying to paint this a broad brush.
You do realize that you're a white man talking about something you don't have to experience.
No, I understand. I understand.
The main objection I'll make to that immediately is the word ignorant. They're not deciding to be ignorant.
What?
I guess I meant to phrase that as a question. Do you really think they're deciding to be ignorant? Because I think that word gets thrown around a lot. Oh, they're ignorant. Are they? Are they really unaware of what they're doing is wrong or bad or frowned upon?
Well,
they're not ignorant of this
we
issue.
have to look at the indoctrination of it.
And I get that.
Certain people have been in power for so long. When y'all talk about an American girl, what do you think? Blonde hair, blue eyes.
Actually, that's German for me, or Swedish.
That depends. It depends on the part of the country you're actually in. Now,
Okay,
and that's just a diversity thing in the country.
But white girl.
But by and large,
the reason why I would think
power
white
been
girl is
dominated.
just simply because I'm white.
Okay, so by and large, the classic pinup girl is white. I'm totally
There you go. Yeah.
And so we have a lot of growing we have to do just on education alone to grow out of that. And that's going to take years.
Yeah, but in this day and age,
We're not that far removed from slavery. Guys.
Well, no,
Like,
and I
wasn't
get
long
that.
ago.
But the reason why I have the problem with the word ignorant is I think it gets used a little too freely. I think that here in 2020, especially after everything that, has just completely saturated the television after George Floyd, can you really say that you're ignorant on the topic of racism?
Absolutely.
That you're unaware of it?
Absolutely, because you don't have to.
I could understand that. No, but you're not ignorant of it. Ignorant is just being unaware of it. That you have no knowledge of it.
Well, look at the kids in Idaho. I look at my first barracks mate that when I first joined the Army. When I joined the Army and went to Permanent Party, Josh Collins was from Idaho. He'd never even seen a black person. Luckily for him, I was the first black person he met. Luckily for him.
The very pleasant introductory African American.
As fate would have it.
This is not isolated.
Okay, but here's the
I know
thing.
a lot of people that had a similar experience.
Here's the
I
thing,
had
though.
to- you know
Just
what I mean?
because he
Like,
grew
you
up in
didn't have
Idaho and he'd
experience.
never met a black person before, you're telling me he's never watched a TV show before. He's never watched the news before. He's never read a book before.
But that's completely separate from having that experience.
But
to
then
say,
here's the thing, though. If you've been involved in our culture, you do not get to say that you're ignorant of racism. You can't say, oh, I didn't know it was there. Bullshit. Racism is everywhere in the fact that we all know about it.
Okay, so racism's everywhere in the fact that we all know about it. What I'm talking about is willful racism. I see this person, I dislike this person. And yes,
That
I'm
is a
pointing at the
choice.
black guy here in the room because that would
Yeah.
be the classic scenario.
Right. Yeah,
okay with
that in my
I'm okay
opinion,
with
is a
being black.
choice.
But I have
We appreciate you not
Yeah.
caring that you're black.
I have nothing but love for this guy because he's another human being. There's no.
You trying to steal my man?
I'm spoken for.
Hey, you guys.
I found him first.
Wait a minute.
Is it racist if I call dibs?
What is that line from Simon Pegg?
a little bit.
You sprayed him with your nerd musk.
We can share cussed out. God, it got worse.
Okay, all right.
It got worse.
I'm gonna finish up my point before you.
Yeah,
die.
go for it.
But no, intentional racism. I think is what is rare.
Okay.
The actual acts of racism where it's subconscious, that is prevalent. I will agree to that.
So I still have an issue with that because I know that you travel, so I don't want you to take this the wrong way.
Everywhere.
Okay, but here's the thing. I travel almost every day of my life. Different states, different towns, different people. I see racism all the fucking time. Because here's the thing. In my world, Muslims and Hindus and Sheiks and everything, they're becoming very prevalent. Some people have a fucking problem with that, to which I would point out, if these motherfuckers wanted to be terrorists and destroy the world, there's so many of them in the trucking industry, you would die before you could even complete that dumbass fucking thought.
could beat
Here's
America
the thing.
with spoons.
I see this shit all the fucking time, and it is intentional.
No, that is intentional. But
But that's my point. It's every day. It's every city I go to. Like, I don't think that you can downplay. Like, I will say that racism isn't as big of a deal as what we make it out to be within the media and everything, but it is a day-to-day issue that people are facing.
So I was talking about, and this is going to sound bad, white on black kind of racism. Now, if you want to talk about racism,
I think that's part of the problem, though, is to narrow it down to that category.
I agree with you. It's part of the problem. Now, here's the reason it's narrowed down to that category. We had a very large terrorist attack not too long ago, and it's still in the nation's memory. So we have now culturally had a shift to where, the guys over there from Sandland are the enemies.
Whoa. Sandland?
Well, you and I both know it's mostly sand.
So is Africa, bitch.
No, not as bad. Africa has some trees and animals and stuff. They got areas where there's nothing but sand and rocks.
But see, I would say that it's even more dangerous now after 9/11 to focus more on white versus black racism than the other. Because here's the thing, with that
are you
kind
trying to say that we're turning a blind eye?
Oh, by the way that you just described it, yes. If we want to focus on white versus black racism and we ignore the rest of it, then yeah.
Yeah, no, okay.
If we
I'm with it.
want to be real and look back at 2002, was it 2003 when the towers got hit?
2001?
2001, bro.
2000. Oh, wow. It's been that long. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while, man.
Somebody reset his clock.
If we look back, racism actually, white versus black, got better during that time.
It did.
It did,
And we
because
have
we
to-
were all like, we had a one unifying enemy,
what is
one
it?
goal.
That's Orwellian theory, right? War is peace.
Yeah.
If you put a face to an enemy,
And I think that the point that I was trying to get through that is
we can all join.
I had a conversation, and obviously this episode hasn't aired yet because I haven't edited it, but I had a conversation with my friend Caitlin, and she said something that at first I wanted to disagree with her, but the more that I've thought about it, the more that it's starting to make sense to me. She's a trans woman, and she said, okay, so the initial statement that she made was that if we make America safe for black trans women, then we've pretty much made it safe for everybody.
No.
That is not accurate.
And well, here's the
They're
thing.
way more
My immediate, argument to that was, well, then you're focusing too narrowly. If you focus that narrowly, then you're going to miss everybody else. But I think the point that she was trying to make is if we focus on trying to get our safety level to the point that black trans women can feel safe, because honestly, it's probably the most dangerous thing that you could be right now in America. Dude,
no.
give me somebody
not
that's
even
more likely to
close.
get killed. First off, black people are killed for ridiculous fucking reasons all the time. Trans people right now are being killed and completely fucking ignored. Nobody's even fucking looking into it. So you combine the two and you got a black trans woman, you're going to tell me she gets gunned down and nobody looks into it?
By your own rules, you now have to cite some precedent. Tell me where some trans women are getting gunned down. I'm
All right.
just curious.
Keep the conversation going and I'll pull up these
I want to go
cases.
ahead and shout out to the Mexican community.
Yeah,
that are
Hispanics,
crossing-
we love you
Hispanics
guys.
that cross the border. They deal with a lot of death, a lot of suffering, and nobody comes to take up their mantle.
Okay, so just replace black trans woman with immigrant from Mexico.
No.
Her point is if we make the country safe.
What rabbit hole are we dodging in to find the most
Okay,
marginalized?
no.
victim?
What I'm saying, that's her point though, is if we can try and get the safety level for the most marginalized person in the
can't
country.
do that. That's ridiculous.
Right, we can't, but we can try. And the goal, we can always try.
No.
No, we can't. So we just don't do anything.
No, at some point we have to create an understanding.
Okay, what you're
Which is trying.
At what point do
what you're looking here?
We get the margin once we reach that level of marginalization, it just extends further. And then, I don't identify as anything, and now I'm this, and now I'm the
Okay,
next
but
one.
if you break it down to a larger generalization of most of what I do with my body and with the person that I'm like with behind closed doors, so long as we're consenting adults, is none of your fucking business.
Well, it's
you can
not,
break it to a larger generalization.
Well,
But her overall point was the fact that we could strive to make the nation as safe as possible. The fact that we do have individuals that we can point to that give us at least a goal. And you can't tell me that we can't try. We can
do that.
try.
So what
It
you're
might
general
be
standard
completely
of
impossible, but that doesn't mean I could try and fly by jumping off my roof every day.
We should-
I'm never going to fly, but that doesn't mean that I can't try.
If
You
we
can't-
target citizenship and put it in the proper perspective, because your sexuality, if I'm looking at this Dr. Pepper can, your sexuality is the top of this little lid right here, this little straw holder, I guess,
Tab.
whatever the tab is on the top. And the rest of this can is who you are.
Right.
And so if we're going to go into marginalization based on your sexuality and all this other, that's an endless hole. Because what about the guys that like to fuck cars?
Okay, hold on. Hold on.
There's a whole.
That
Hold
is
on.
a whole thing.
Hold on.
It is.
Let me
out there
hold on.
and everything else.
Let's take it away from sexuality if that's your hang up.
Okay.
You're marginalized for the color of your skin. Should I not care about that? Because if I marginalize you down to the color of your skin, that's just one step further that I could go. We could go to your sexuality next. We could go to your music preference next. But the fact that you're being marginalized, isn't that something that we should pay attention to?
Guys, I can fix this for you real fast.
Go for it.
What you're looking for is a cultural change. And it's not a cultural change toward ending racism. It is not a cultural change toward maybe not killing a trans woman. It is a cultural change to acceptance.
That's my point.
And that acceptance, the only way you're ever going to get there,
It's through education.
it's through education, and Matt's going to love this one. You're going to have to alter a lot of the religious teachings because some sects are just too extreme for that.
That's
scenario.
exactly where it
Which
comes
to
from.
me is a form of education.
So you will eventually never get there.
Yeah.
Religion
you
is
can
the
get in the
biggest source
ballpark.
of exclusion
Yes.
in America.
And
Religion
we've
is,
talked
period.
about that before.
Absolutely.
I think the reason why I got heated there for a second is I hate when people tell me, "Oh, we shouldn't try." Fuck you, we should.
I kept
We
trying to
should.
slow you down. You just
We
weren't
should.
listening.
That's when we jump into the realm of socialism, and we start going out here on these witch hunts.
Yeah.
Right,
Against
but
people that don't feel a
and that's what I'm
certain
saying.
way.
Like you can, and I think that's one of the reasons why I had a disagreement with what she was saying. Is you can focus in, but you can focus in too much. And so what I was trying to tell her, and you'll hear it once the episode actually comes out, is I brought it back to that larger marginalization of maybe 90% of what the fuck you do as a person shouldn't matter to anybody else.
It
But
is
her point
impossible.
stands that the ultimate goal should be that the country, that our ultimate goal should be that we should try and make the country as safe as possible for the most marginalized individual, whether it's a black trans woman or not.
If you are a tax-paying citizen of America that is not a threat to your society, you should not be affected by anything of any form of marginalization.
Agreed.
I think that's where we need to put it at, is regular citizenship.
Yeah.
Well, let me add this thought. It's impossible to legitimately pass laws to legislate morality. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Yes.
Laws are social constructs, and you can choose to obey them or not. The
So
only
is
thing, the only
morality,
thing
though.
that is real is the consequences.
Yeah.
Because we will never be able to identify motive.
Yeah. But I mean, that still goes back to education on people need to be taught how to discover their own morality and how to make it better. To optimize it to the, its
now you're
furthest
talking
potential.
about indoctrination centers for education. I think.
How's that indoctrination center? For one, all education is mind washing.
Well, let me rephrase that. What will be considered indoctrination centers? And what I mean by that is that you have a lot of folks that are really not liking the education system we currently have because of the predilection for some schools to teach a very socialist curriculum.
Right.
So where do you get the education?
That's why I'm saying that,
Translation, it has to be a cultural shift. It has to happen in the home.
well, and that's why I'm saying it goes back to our promotion of you should educate yourself. You should question yourself, challenge yourself, and always try to get better at getting better because you're never going to be the best that you can be.
Well, that's the
Well, the
gift
Army
of this
said you can.
podcast is
I literally said that specifically because I'm sitting in front of 2 Army veterans.
through us talking to each other. The more I find out about you, the more I find out about myself.
Right.
And so in turn, when I see you, I can see myself.
Yeah.
And if I can't see myself in that person outside that doesn't necessarily ascribe to the same belief systems or have the same sexuality as I do, well, then we're automatically going to create 2 different
But what
shifts.
changes that? Going out and talking to that person.
Well, needing that person, removing the need for each other. And that's when we go back to social
Technology being, damn, full motherfucking circle.
Yeah, we go back to
technology.
That was
that
sweet.
meets our
Problem,
needs
yeah.
for each other.
That was sweet. All right. Well, we are way over time on this one. So I want to end this up because we've talked about the race issue. We've talked about the cop culture and everything that we've got going on. So I kind of thought about this for a little while, and I wanted to run it by you the first night that we met.
What you got?
The argument that people have about police racism, institutional racism, the fact that, black people are targeted by cops.
Absolutely.
I wanted to give people a better way to proceed through that conversation, because most of the time the way I see it is you've got somebody that's saying, hey, we have police brutality, and then you've got somebody saying, hey, we don't. And the way that conversation usually plays about is cops are killing black folk. Yeah, but not that much. Well, no, they're doing it, disproportionately. Yeah, but, they actually kill white people more. Yeah, but they're killing black people at disproportionate numbers. Yeah, but black people commit more crimes, so they have more interaction with cops. So if they get killed more, then it's not disproportionate. This is where my suggestion comes in. Instead of arguing with this person that has all of these talking points that they're throwing back, agree with them. Because let's be honest, typically the conversation is a white guy versus a black guy. So the black guy on this side, the white guy just comes back with, oh, well, black people have more interaction with the police, so they're not killed disproportionately. They still kill white people more. Cool. Awesome.
You're okay with that?
That's it. That's it. I've never seen anybody do that.
You're okay with that?
Stop it right there. Stop disagreeing and be like, you know what? You're 100% right. Cops kill more white people and white people commit less crime, so they interact with the police less. Why are you okay with that? Because see, at that point, now you're putting them on the spot to justify their culture's interaction with the police. See, I didn't even have to ask you if you agreed.
Yeah.
You fucking got there as I was getting through it.
Yeah, I left that point whenever you told me.
I feel like that's a better way for people to go through that conversation, because I think that people get hung up when institutionalized racism comes into play. As soon as that's said, people want to argue whether it exists or not.
We don't want to look back.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid of the history of it all.
I think people get
can't-
distracted by
That
it.
history is nasty, man.
It is.
It's not fun.
But
to
I
go
think it's a
through.
distraction.
Can we do it real quick? Because I can break it down real quick.
Well,
Oh, dude, we're gonna need a
thought
whole episode for that, because honestly, that would take us about an hour and a half.
I don't
I mean,
think
you
so.
can hit the high notes if you
Let
want.
me go high notes.
None of them are high; they're all low notes.
No,
But
these
go
are,
high
these are
notes.
below low.
go for it.
The attack of the family structure. By and large, on a whole, in America, there is a.
You talking about the
emasculation-
war on drugs and the mass incarceration of black males?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
Going back
He's
past
talking
that.
about nuclear family, buddy.
Okay.
Nuclear family aspects. By and large, there's an emasculation of the male species, by and large, across America. And our. Wait for me.
How did this turn from we were going to hit the high notes of racism to the
Because
emasculation of males in society?
Because why? Because if we can get you dependent on a government structure, well, then now a government structure has power, right? And where does this power run? We have to have people in prison that are given free labor. Slavery hasn't gone away; it's gone to for-profit prisons, right? So you remove the male, which is the sense of order in the home, because I'm just going on basic principles of the family structure. Obviously, there can be females that, if we want to get into all the different dichotomies, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's why I got confused. I thought you were talking about the mass incarceration of black males.
I'm getting
because talking about the attack on the nuclear family makes it sound as if you're saying that men in America need to feel bad for themselves, and I don't think that's the case.
Well, I actually do.
Okay,
Because-
then we can talk about that at some point.
Okay.
I don't know
That's
about feeling
a-
bad. I think we should probably be concerned about where
I
the
think we should
overall
be-
culture is going.
Manhood is quickly, and there's a direct attack.
Yeah, because I won't
To
disagree
emasculate
that,
men in
we set up
America.
a system that incarcerated a large number of black males and took them out of the family, and therefore you had a generation that was raised by a single mom.
I don't exactly, and I don't want to separate the two because that's still part of the bigger,
Okay.
bigger
That
construct.
also-
I just want to make sure that I'm fully understanding you.
But if you go all the way back to the slave plantation,
Okay.
families were ripped apart. Women were raped. Families were ripped apart. And the social structure was that the woman is going to raise the kid, the man's going to work, and the man is going to be taken out of the home, and whenever the slave master wants to come in and rape the woman, he can, and the male power within the family is removed, right?
Okay.
That's in slavery.
Right.
Right. Now, we got away from slavery and we moved on. Now, how do we take the man back out of the house? Well, you remove opportunity for education. You remove opportunity for productivity on a capitalist scale. And so what do you have left? A life of crime, because that's the only other way to acquire currency in a fast enough manner that's going to give you something without having to go run a service. Everybody can't be a barber. Everybody can't be, you know what I mean? You're going to run short. So
yeah, because you're in an education hole at that point.
when you remove the man from the home, you remove the structure. And so now you have a woman that's having to work way harder to take care of the kids and provide for the home. And so she's not there. And so you have kids that are basically being raised by other kids and raised by other family members. And so they lose that structure and order that comes from the male and that sense of respect for a higher authority, right?
So one thing that I want to interject in here, just because I don't want people to get confused or to take this as a justification and run with it. What do you think about a household of two females?
I think that's why
Are you saying that you need mom and dad, or are you just saying you need both parents?
you need both parents.
I would say further, it sounds to me like you're saying you need both roles.
Absolutely.
I can go with that because, two females can work both gender roles.
That argument alone is back into the emasculation. Like there's a need for what a man can provide for the home. We are the sense of security. We are the patriarch of the household, and that has been a structure and a concept of society from the beginning of fucking time. There's a reason why it works that way. And so, yes, we're redeveloping it, and yes, we're re-looking at it, and yes, there are exclusions to the source where women can absolutely be that source of order and absolutely be the providers. Yeah, but by and large, we are wired in our imperialistic structure in our society to where the man goes to work and provides the house, and the woman makes it a home.
So again, one thing that I would throw in there is just because historically that has been the case doesn't mean that it's actually been the best thing for us.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But when we talk about our social constructs, that's what they are built upon.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's why I'm just trying to. I'm trying to make sure that we hit this from all angles.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. Can it be different? You can ride a bike with one leg if you want to.
Fair enough. It's just you just got to figure out how to do it. You got to make it work.
How to do it.
Okay.
But by and large, that's what happened. And so when we look at that, when you look at people that have been coming out of slavery and the collateral damage of that, okay, and then you're engrossed in the society of Western culture that says, hey, you need to look like this and act like this and talk like this if you want to fit in and be part of the majority.
Right.
Right. But at the same time, when you look at resources, we're going to reduce the amount of resources you have to grow. Right. We're going to remove the male from the home, reduce the amount of resources you have to grow. And over time, what happens? You get more and more ignorant people. You get loss of respect for authority. You get crime rates that are going to go sky high. You get outside, and whatever effort is made to change that, shout out to the Panthers, is in turn going to get, here we go with Ronald Reagan, sprinkling crack. And then they get taken out of the picture.
Oh Lord!
I mean, that's another bunny.
That's a whole
and that's why I said we could do a whole episode on this history.
I'm just hitting the high notes.
Yeah, I know.
But we don't want to look back and see what created this.
I agree.
There was a mass incarceration of black males across the country. Those are fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles that were removed from their home,
which generated a stereotype that we haven't shaken to this day.
So when you remove the order and you remove the structure, what is a cop going to be coming in and doing? Restoring order and restoring structure. That's their responsibility, to say, in this environment. And so, yes, there's going to be over policing because daddy ain't home to whoop that ass. Okay? That little boy is the man of the house. He's trying to
get complaints from the anti-spankers now.
You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, it does go back to another one of the points that we were making, that education is the way forward, is because over-policing is not the answer.
But where was education?
Well, education has failed because of the class system issue that we're having with the taxpayer problem.
But if you look at the attack on education, that came simultaneously with the integration of school systems. Once we put black and white people together, now there's an attack on education. The education system goes longer. Next thing you know.
Which led to not only a race problem, but a class warfare problem.
Yeah.
Boom. There it is. So we have to take all of that and put it into perspective and say this is a community that was built in the midst of this. And these projects, we look at the projects and we think those are for poor people of color, and that's not the case. Projects were originally built for white people that came in to grow in a community and have a
Yeah.
place to work and have a place to live.
Projects is just poor people in general. It doesn't matter what color they
well,
are.
the
It wasn't
projects
always
all-
that
I know.
case.
I know.
Project's main downfall was massive corruption, really. And who did that?
There you go.
Arguments over money and lack of education to fight against it.
So we look at all these things, and then we look at what has grown from that. And a young man trying to grow and flourish in America is going to do whatever whatever it takes to get money to provide for his family, to provide. And so crime, what is crime? Is it really someone trying to provide and do what they got to do? Or is it lack of opportunity and lack of education? And also, like we talked about before with the police dog dragging its legs, if this was my dad did, this is all I know is where I came from.
Yeah.
And so you get this systemic constant that is never broken because nobody wants to look back and see where we came from with that. They just want to say, okay, well, these guys are sagging their pants and they selling drugs and shooting craps on the corner and going to the liquor store and doing all this crime. Why? It's not for it's
Because in some cases, a lot of my friends, because I grew up real poor,
absolutely.
and it was expected. That was what you did. It was cultural.
And that ain't white, that ain't black, that ain't purple. That's just
That's
poverty
human.
in general. That's poverty.
That's human.
That's
You'll take whatever the best opportunity is available to you at the moment to be able to provide for your existence,
And then-
which is why prostitution is the oldest profession in the world.
And that's why we have to look at the criminal mind that goes into the structure of jail systems. And now we have to talk about institutionalization to where I spent 25 years in here already for a petty crime. This is all I know. I basically grew up in prison.
Why would I go back to society that's not going to accept me,
Not only
automatically reject me, not allow me to vote for my representatives? I might as well just repeat offend and come back.
Right, but you've literally been re-educated at that point. Like
Absolutely.
any public education you had, it's gone. You have had
That's
an
it.
education in
Totally.
how to get by.
Oh yeah.
Because there is no rehabilitation.
Honestly,
in
whenever we
for-profit
can get
prisons.
Brennan here,
Exactly.
yeah, whenever
Well, no,
we can
that
get Brennan
actually-
here, we need to have a conversation about the prison system.
Right, but that's a bit of a misnomer. There are for-profit prisons that do rehabilitation, but they're far in the minority.
Yeah.
Far.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just trying to make a point that, stop. No. It's good. That's all good information because it lets people know that they can go back, that they need to go back. They need to see how how we got here. But I'm just saying as a technique to move forward, don't get distracted by the side notes. And I know that that's a big thing to say that institutional racism is a side note, but you can spend the argument arguing about whether that type of racism exists or not, or you can put the other person in the hot seat and say, okay, well, if my end goal is that I want to end police brutality, and you just admitted to me that your people are being killed at a disproportionate number, justify to me why that's okay. To me, that just seems like a better way to try and get the conversation moving forward.
Yeah, and go into that conversation with the mindset that being a police officer is not an easy job.
It sucks.
As it is. It's
You
It
don't get to go
sucks.
home, man. I thought about becoming a cop when I first came back from.
Did you listen to the intro episode? No. Charles and I both studied criminology, and then we decided not to become cops. And I was like, "Yay, 2 less white cops!"
Yeah, he did do that.
I actually think though, if we had more cops that came from the community that they are servicing,
Yeah,
And
We
that's
see a lot
that's an
less
idea that's
crime
being
rates.
floated.
yeah.
It
With
is.
with better education and training, though, because let's face it, cops are put in positions that they're just not fucking prepared for.
and there's a lot of cultural differences.
And honestly,
Some
even
things that might scare you in the black community don't scare me.
yeah,
You know
I
what mean?
honestly.
You might pull your firearm, like, "Ah, you
I'm
can
not
pull
trying to
something."
pull the I'm better than anybody else card or anything like that, but there's not really anything in a black community that scares me just because I've made it a point to meet people different than me. It's not always black people. I've made a point to meet people different than me because I want to learn about the world and I want to learn about myself and I want to try and be, the best that I can be in society. And the only way that you can do that is to meet people different than you. I've gone to
Get
gay
outside your
bars.
hometown, people.
Yeah, I've been to gay bars. Awesome. It was great.
there's a level of humility
I told
in
you
that
about going to the
everybody
barber
doesn't care.
shop.
Yeah.
And it was a great fucking experience. It was completely different than what I thought it was going to be. And that's just because, let's face it, I watched the movie Barbershop and it was kind of like that, but not as exaggerated. But it was still a great experience and everything. And even though, I have the issue that I have at times with the Muslim community simply because I have so much issues with their religion. Their holy text I have a lot of problems with. And I know we've gone back and forth on that and everything. And yet, anytime I meet a Muslim, I open up with a genuine attempt to connect because I want to know them as a person and I don't want to know them as a religion because those two things are completely different.
They could be just as scared of us with Christianity.
Oh, 100%.
They are in some cases.
Rightfully so.
I mean, we did march over there with the thought process that we deserve to take everything just because our white Jesus was there.
Mm-hmm.
King Henry and all those people were dicks, and we know it. Yeah. But now we pissed off the British.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
I want to.
Anyway, final thoughts because we're an hour and 40 minutes into this. No, it's good. It's good. It's good.
I just want to slide one thing under the door.
Okay.
You mentioned it earlier. We're talking about training, right? So a lot of these cops, a lot of these police officers, they get what's average training for a cop? Like 9 weeks, something like that?
I think it's right at 3 months now.
It's 3 months now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, still.
Depending on where you go.
Yeah, depending on where you go and what the requirements are. But for my small town, it's 9 weeks.
Okay.
You went through basic.
Yeah.
What was your basic?
4 months.
You went 4 months?
Right at 4 months, yeah.
It's 9 weeks now.
Basic is 9 weeks?
Yes, sir.
That's fucking terrifying.
The average for
9 weeks?
9 weeks.
The average for the police academy training is 13 to 19 weeks across the country. Now, obviously, it's going to be smaller and higher, but that's the average across the nation.
So let's go with 13 to 19 weeks.
Okay.
And right now, I have experienced soldiers who've had this 9-week training and then proceed right on to AIT and then go through all that kind of stuff. They are crap. So if we have cops that aren't even completing a training cycle that is equal or better than the military. So what I mean by that is that you have 9 weeks, then you have an add-on to that of 2 to 3 months of individual training.
Right.
The first 2 weeks is acclimation any fucking way.
Exactly.
Well, take into account that a lot of officers recently were just pushed through because they were short on officers.
Right.
So they didn't even finish training.
So we have this scenario right here where this training time for our military, which we're turning loose with military grade hardware. Now, a lot of vets are going to be out there laughing, going, ha, 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 military grade, because we all know what that means. 2 words, lowest bidder. But that whole scenario stinks to me because I know when I came out of training, I didn't know nothing. I was wet behind the ears. I had to go get some experience. And some police programs, they put their guys through shadows, and you got to do ride-alongs and be only there for so long. But got to realize that even though they're doing shadows and ride-alongs and stuff like that, they're still armed. They still have the potential to make a stupid mistake. They can fuck up on a phenomenal level. We have a bad scenario in this country of lack of training of police officers, lack of being able to de-escalate, lack of being able to communicate effectively, lack of being able to go up to somebody and say, hey, bro, what you doing, versus going and reaching back and touching your taser and saying, hey, do the Patrick Swayze, man. Be nice until it's time not to be nice. If you listen out there and you're a cop, be nice until it's time not to be nice.
Yeah.
You get way more good results with that.
I think one of the issues that we have is also the expectations and the preparations. The thing is you can take somebody and you can put them through combat training. You can put them through police training. You have absolutely no idea how you're going to react to a situation until you're in that situation.
Absolutely.
And even when they do lethal training, in that training, they're not actually out to kill you. You have no idea how you're going to react to a gun being pointed in your face. Absolutely. Until you get a gun pointed in your face.
I agree with that.
And I think a lot of it is the fear, the anticipation of a gun being put in their face gets the adrenaline pumping, which when you start reacting on instinct and just dumb ass base level knowledge, you revert back to these biases that you have, whether you want to acknowledge them or not, and you treat people differently. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge part of the problem.
You do, but I bring this back to training, and he can back me up on this.
Yeah.
When you're in training and you're going through your battle drills, you're drilling it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. You're just getting after it.
I understand
for solid
that.
days on it.
But I understand that.
But
That's
the point
building
point
muscle memory, though.
Exactly. It becomes muscle memory. You develop the actual neural pathways that's your default response. And even though you are scared to death, you are far more likely to act in a controlled manner because you have rehearsed it constantly than if you got in that situation without it.
Right. So long as we can acknowledge that it's not a guarantee that that's how you're going to react.
There are no guarantees in life, Matt. Come on.
Right. But that's my point, is that there are no guarantees. My reason for that is I think a lot of people get into law enforcement with an expectation of what law enforcement is. And then they get involved in a situation that they didn't think that they might find themselves in. But hey, guess what? You're in it now. What the fuck are you going to do?
I'm going to go take this back to perspective again. And I'm going to look at this more so as a gradient than an on and off switch of capability.
Right.
Because we're saying guys are either going to perform under pressure or they're not going to perform under pressure. But
I mean, it's true.
Keeping the human aspect of it. A lot of times when we talk about what you're going through, your home life is an issue.
Yep.
Are you dealing with stress with your wife? Are you dealing with stress with your family? Are you hurting for money? Where are you at before you even get into this situation?
Are you mentally prepared to be able to do the job?
Do you have that support network there on the other side of this when you go through it or not? Because some guys go through a dangerous ass situation and they never come down off that hill because that support network isn't there, and they stay wired. And those are your burnouts, and they end up getting burned out in the police force.
Yes, they do. And the way that you help alleviate that, and you hit on it earlier, was you have officers from the local community. And this is going to sound like 1950s, everything's great kind of soda shop mentality. But
I don't know if I'll say that everything was great in the 1950s, but
well, for white people, it was.
Oh yeah, never mind. Go ahead. We good.
All right, that was the.
I looked down and forgot. I'm white. We're good.
That was the propaganda at the time. And you guys know it. But no, check this out. So I think police departments should treat each precinct, borough, and area of their patrol kind of like an individual little town, like their own little Mayberry.
Yes. They should.
And they should have officers in there. They don't necessarily have to be directly from there, although that would be preferred. Yeah. But they want somebody in there that interacts with the community, says, "Hey, Bob, how you doing? Hey, DeMarcus, what's up, man? Nice hoops." Or you drive.
Empathy.
Yeah, you have some empathy. You go out and you talk to your community.
Understand your community.
Which goes back to your lack of person-to-person interaction these days.
Well, that's situational awareness.
Yeah,
that is situational awareness. That's having your head on a swivel 9 times out of 10, and making sure you stay alive.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different ballgame. And in this case, we're talking. Well, that's not being taught either. No. But in this case, I'm talking about enforcing empathy.
Yeah. Well, I think we can wrap this up with: challenge yourself, educate yourself, talk to your neighbors regardless of who they are, and pay attention to what the fuck's going on around you.
And don't take our word for it. Do the research.
Damn it, he beat me to it.
All right, we'll see y'all next time.
This is the outro.